Okay, let's get this show on the road. All right, folks, welcome to the Hacked Off podcast. This is episode 12, where we're talking about weaponized sex and the loaded gun that is between your legs. You know, provided you're not hacked off. And I'm your host, C.S. Joseph, and I'm joined by the kahuna himself, Mr. Yuri Skarzynski. Thank you for doing this with me.
Anytime.
I wouldn't trade you for anyone, like at all. This is.
We got a great location today.
Yeah. Thank you for picking out the location. Yuri's been handling our location choices, and it's been fantastic. This is great. I love this. This is really good. And so, folks, as always, when we open up the show, actually like and subscribe. We need to get this thing monetized so we can earn our $50 a month. Okay, so we get our $50 a month. That way we can start saving up for additional microphones to be able to have guests on the show frequently. We have a nice plan for guest content to be able to come out in addition to our regular show. And we're going to be doing that. Most particularly, imagine going out around in public and inviting SD men to be on the show, and then we covertly roast them through Socratic questioning over time until they're like red in the face, and then they end up leaving the show in a rage, and that'll be a really fun episode. So, but hey, you know, it is what it is. Also, discord.gg/egohackers. We are hosting the show in the Ego Hacker community. Join our Discord server, get into the Hacked Off chat channel, and share your love, share your pain, and share anything. It might even lead to you being a guest on the show one day, who knows, or maybe any of your insights that you have with your struggle with subconscious developed men and subconscious developed women, or SDism within society. We definitely want to be a part of it. If you want to contact Yuri and I directly, you can do that on the Discord, or you can go to our link trees. The links are below in the description. That has access to all of our socials. Slide in our DMs. Let's have conversations. Let's get things going. And then also, we are sponsored by the CS Joseph YouTube channel. You can support us financially there by going to school.com/CS Joseph, SKOOL.com/CS Joseph. It's only $29 a month. And that's necessary because it will help you find out if you are unconscious developed or if you are subconscious developed as a man or a woman. You definitely want to get that. And that is in the classroom section under season 40. Take all 54, 52 episodes of that course. Get educated immediately so you can properly personality type yourself so you know what you're actually working with and can get started on your journey to getting towards unconscious development. So yeah, wow, interesting. I have a note here to talk about anime body pillows. Maybe we'll do that later in the show. But be that as it may, what kind of comments you got for us?
All right, so we got Will Travelstead. Is that how you say
Yeah, Will Travelstead.
Travelstead.
Yeah.
Isn't it interesting that the actual public ceremony of marriage is not the same thing as the true reality and definition of marriage? Kind of like getting baptized does not make you a follower of Christ, but rather active loyalty to Christ. Humans are a feminine race. Conrad followed it up with, the modern public marriage ceremony is a humiliation ritual for men, and the more you spend on it, the worse the humiliation is. So
yeah.
That's going to touch on basically half the show.
Yeah,
so
half the show. Yeah, that literally, like well said, because we have half the show dedicated to responding to your comments, sir. All right, what's next?
We got Max Kojin. How do you know which SD men should stay SD men? Or is it better off that every man becomes UD? Because I do enjoy art, and SD men are some of the best artists, are they not?
Okay, well, in my opinion, I would recommend all SD men become UD men. But then, of course, what is this? The SD men race to the bottom of like, well, we want to hold out as long as possible so we can be part of the 20% of men who are responsible for the artistry of society. And it's like...
Yeah. If you're not Mozart, you're not like born into like a rich family, then maybe you should be UD.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you're better to be a soldier ant than a worker ant.
Like, if you're not like Ben Shapiro playing the flute, like you're a flute prodigy when you're like 10 years old.
Oh my God.
You're not born into one of those kinds of families, then maybe you should be UD.
Is
You
he
don't
a
have-
flute prodigy?
Something like that. There's like a video of him from forever ago.
You know, his sister's cool, but
Is
he's
Ben
not.
Shapiro UD or SD?
He's SD. He's SD straight up.
I haven't watched enough of his stuff.
His sister's UD. And I guess that's
can see
probably
that.
what her appeal is, you know.
Yeah.
So, but I'm not always sure I like Khazar milkers, to be honest. Not really sure about that. Like,
Unless they have like a body pillow.
I'm a small tits guy. I mean, like, you know what's interesting? I actually talked about this on School recently, where I made this insane claim that small-breasted women are SPs, big-breasted women are NJ women, and small butt women are SJ women, and big butt women are NP women. And like everyone's like, what? How is this a thing? I'm telling you,
Is that a rule or?
it is a thing. It's a
Okay.
thing. It's part of visual typing. But then, like, you know, obviously the people in the classroom are like, well, hold on, there's some nuance here. What about the combinations of these things going with each other, et cetera? And I'm like, yeah, that matters.
So we got Zach in 7. He says, I'm a UDSF INTP who teaches kids Taekwondo. Let me tell you how fucking infested SDism is among the Gen Alphas. It's about 85%, I believe, mostly the American black kids here in the Atlanta area. Immigrant families are my favorite.
Atlanta's a trash heap.
Yeah,
I've been there too much.
I think all my Asian students are UD, but there's one ENFP SDUF kid I have to publicly shame every fucking day to get him to change his behavior. He has the worst hunger for authority, mind temple influence. And he even tried spreading rumors about me because I don't tolerate his arbitrary rules, his annoying excuses, and his bullshit double standards. Nobody believes him though, since everyone knows I have integrity. Watching this episode, the last one, what's the title of that again? Last week's?
Oh yeah,
He's talking about that, the most recent
I
episode.
can't believe I forgot the title to our own show.
What is marriage?
Yeah, what is marriage?
Yep.
Yes.
Watching this episode gave me lots of ammo for his development. Question, in tougher environments / cultures, is it possible that the UDM plus SDF pairing is more common? If the fathers are out of the picture, the boys
It is.
struggle and turn out UD while the girls are starved for attention.
Yes. Yeah, that is so common. I mean, it ends up inevitably being that way anyway, and I think this is one of the top contributors of divorce because I'd stated this before, especially on the C.S. Joseph YouTube channel. Exploder relationships oftentimes create so much chaos in the home, it could even lead to violence, and it often leads to divorce. So, and it's a really sad thing. But yeah, like the 85%, if this guy is claiming 85%, that's even scarier. Like, what are we doing? Losing 5% every generation? Like, I mean, I'm sure it's going to get even worse and worse and worse.
And shout out to Ishak. He says, Ibrahim, get the stones.
Yes. God, Ishak, a.k.a. Isaac, by the way, because apparently that is the proper pronunciation of his name.
Oh, really?
Yeah, apparently. But I never let him live it down because I've trained everyone in the community to call him Ishak.
I like Ishak better.
I do
You should
too.
just go by Ishak.
Ishak is better. It's like, it's way more manlier. Like, you know, and then we have an entire channel devoted to him called Tershak. So, because all his funny.
You have to pronounce that way. There's no way around it.
Tershak. Yeah, and what's great about that channel is that, like, in my opinion, he is like the ultimate meme generator at all times. It's like he himself just talking is like a walking meme generator. So we gave him a channel, and you just go into that channel and just read it, and it's just go to the very, very top of the channel, which you just go in the pinned messages. You can find the first message, just read the whole channel, and it is the funniest thing you've ever seen. It's just complete comedy gold. I actually hope that one day he gets into stand-up comedy, especially as he gets more UDSF, more open, more explosive, where his comedy routine is him venting his emotions while being authentic at the same time. And I think that would be, like, amazing. Oh, God. Ishak, please, God Almighty, do that.
Then we got RX Corby. This podcast is very good and beneficial for us women as well. I feel so peaceful listening to the masculine judgment shared here. Thank you.
That's a woman? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
I like how she's finding a state of peace from us, like, shitting on everyone. That's very entertaining.
Well, you know, like...
Interesting.
Like I was telling our friend, our veteran friend who keeps getting completely fucked over by flood spore, you can't put a price on peace. Because the price of peace is priceless because it is death. Death is the price for peace. That's why it is priceless.
It's even worse because his brother is lover archetype, and he's not allowed to be his own archetype because he doesn't have any peace.
Yep.
And then he's ESFJ, so his little TI inferior is getting squashed every single day
by Floodspore, the parasite. Oh my God! Like this is just so ridiculous. But hey, rumor has it he's on his way out.
One way or another.
Floodspore is on his way out. We'll keep the audience up to date on Floodspore, the Floodspore situation. Naturally,
we're activating the rings. It's over. No more flood.
We're
going to cleanse the parasite. Yeah.
Cleansing the parasite. You know.
Even if it means glassing half the planet, whatever's necessary.
We will glass the planet. Yeah, you know, you and the Didact have a lot in common. Just saying.
I haven't played that
Halo 4?
No, I've not.
Don't.
Okay. I'll take your word for it. I wasn't planning on it anyway.
Halo 4, I absolutely loathe. Halo 5, however, I enjoyed. Probably a little too much. I really liked Halo 5 a lot.
I stopped at Reach and ODST.
Reach is the best they've ever done. I enjoyed ODST, but I thought the AI on the NPCs was actually pretty terrible. But I really liked ODST. And Firefight was cool. I actually liked Firefight. But it just reminds me, Firefight is literally just zombies from Black Ops, Call of Duty, which I really enjoyed as well. Any other comments, good sir?
That's it.
Okay. All right, so we got some anecdotes. So I was in the gym, and this boomer comes up to me, and he's like, "Hey, man, you're on this machine right now. Would you be all right if I work in with you?" And I'm like, I look at it, I'm like, I just got one set here, and this rest timer is almost done. But then he makes a statement. He's like, "Well, you're just on your phone." And I was actually considering still like, letting him, work in anyway. But the second they said, it's like, "Well, you're on your phone," and I'm like, "What did you just say, Mr. Entitled Boomer? What did you just say to me?"
It's not like everyone tracks their workout on their phone anyway.
You know what's funny? I said to him, given your age, I can understand how sensitive you are to everyone being on their phones. Kind of like a father getting mad at his son for playing too much video games. But if you haven't noticed, every single person in this gym is on their phone. And for you to be judgmental like that is insanely disrespectful. And I'm not going to tolerate that behavior. So then he's like, "Well, you're being disrespectful." And I'm like, "Really? Guess what? In this gym, there are actually 2 of these machines because they are so popular. And, there's a kid right here on that machine adjacent to me. Why didn't you talk to him?" "Well, you've been on the machine longer than he has." I'm like, "That's actually false. I was on that machine while he was on this machine, finished that machine, came over to here. But apparently, you're too selfish and entitled to pay attention to what's actually happening in your surroundings, because this guy, he's subconscious developed. Some subconscious developed, entitled boomer. And I'm just like, dude, what the hell is your problem? And if he didn't make that statement, about being on the phones, I would have done it. I would have done the neighborly thing. But then he just became immediately disrespectful, and then he thinks that is a socially accepted response. And I'm like, dude, I'm almost 40 fucking years old. Who the fuck do you think you are? Treat me like I'm some dumbass kid, when you should actually talk to the actual kid who's like probably not even 19 years old. Talk to him. Like come on, dude. And then I thought to myself, oh, okay, he's probably just afraid of being like accused of looking like a pedo later or something.
I would have said, "Thanks for motivating me to do an extra 5 sets."
Yeah.
The fuck out of my face.
Yeah. Like, these SD men are so disrespectful. I had another one earlier today, actually. I was in a left turn lane, and I turn in my vehicle and get into the closest lane, and then I had to immediately start merging into the right lane, and this SD kid is trying to impress his teenage girlfriend in his oversized truck that he has, and he's a tiny little spindly fucking, like, not an ounce of muscle on this guy. He started talking the horn and being a complete fucking asshole to me, even though I did nothing illegal, and I merged in front of him as if and he's acting road ragey as if I cut him off, which I didn't.
That was right up here, right?
Yeah, that was
Today?
really right. Yeah, that was literally right here, right in front of the Starbucks. Like this happens, and I'm like, oh, okay. So I park the car, knowing exactly, so that he knows where I'm parked. And I'm like, okay, are you gonna come over? Are you gonna get out of your car? You gonna have an altercation? Is that what you're gonna do? Because you got to be all machismo and be all fucking macho in front of your girlfriend, which, by the way, as soon as you start engaging in conversation with me over this shit, you're going to be made to look so bad in front of her that you're going to fucking regret this choice. Oh, my God.
Did he have the truck nuts?
No, he didn't.
No?
But what he did have was broccoli hair. He had the broccoli hair.
Well, he still spiritually had the truck nuts. Even if he literally didn't.
Yeah, dude.
That's fine.
Like, what a ridiculous situation. And then we had a visit from Caveman. We had a visit from Caveman, who is this roided out fellow. That's like our opinion of him. Like who's balding. He's got to wear his hat so to not reveal that he is balding or whatever. And he is like this owner of another gym at this other gym for some fucking reason that we have no fucking clue as to what is even going on there. And then, like, what does he do? He harasses me at the gym. Why? Because he's scared. Because the friend group just decided to not talk to him anymore. And apparently, like, it's his friend group versus our friend group or whatever. Even though we've told them we don't want to have anything to do with them. And they're just running scared and have their little stupid game of telephone that keeps going on, and they just get more degenerate with their imaginings as to what's happening. So bullshit.
Also on the leg press too.
Yeah,
you just can't get your leg press done.
I was on the leg press, and he comes over to me, and he's like, "Oh, no hard feelings, man." And I looked at him, and I'm like, "What are you talking about? Like, you talk shit about me behind my back. I don't want to have anything to do with you. Stay the fuck away from me. Never speak to me again." And he kept on persisting, and I kept on making that statement. And what people don't realize is that when you're at a gym, everything is recorded. What a moron. What a complete moron. Like, and then talking to management about it, and the manager actually had a conversation with me, and like, they're reviewing the cameras about what actually happened. And it's like, yeah, like this guy, I told him to leave me alone. I never want to speak to him again. And then all of a sudden, he actually, what is it, you said today?
That was today.
Yeah, today. He starts talking to one of our other friends in our friend group. And it's like, and that friend told him to fuck off too. It's just like.
And then he's like, whatever, man, and walked off.
Yeah, because he's such a weak bitch. He's like a complete weak bitch.
Well,
Here's the other thing. He can't even actually stand on his own in an argument. He has to have somebody else do it for him. Probably relies on AI to make his statements. Like,
our other friend said this. He goes, "These guys are so desperate for our attention. It's like they prowl around in search of us and feel compelled to interact for a crumb of attention which I do not want to offer."
Yeah.
That sums it up
Such
perfectly.
an attention whore. Because, they're looks maxers, because they're male attention whores. And it's just like the doing the male bimbo thing. And
yeah, how's that going for you when you can't even take the hat off because you're balding?
Yeah.
Like Rollo Tomassi or Tim Pool.
Yeah, exactly.
These guys
That man,
glued to their beanies.
They're glued.
How pathetic is that?
Oh my God. Yes, it's so true, dude. Like, I'm just like, shut the fuck up. Like, leave me the fuck alone. So yeah, that just hella bothered me, And this guy is like the poster child for everything wrong with SD men and thus society that we're talking about in today's show. And
between him and Floodspore.
Yeah, him and Floodspore, for sure. Caveman and Floodspore, like brothers in arms. And I'm not talking brothers in arms in terms of arms that like weapons. I'm talking like brothers in arms because they're like playing Red Rover and they got their arms locked together. Because you know, like we discussed in the last episode, fake or gay, right? They're being fake and gay, like straight up. You know, so.
Well, he even denied talking shit about you behind your back.
Yeah, he did.
When I have the receipts of that, like,
yeah,
he's done that to me over DMs, and I have screenshots. So, how are you going to deny that?
Yeah, like he's. Oh well, he. What did he do? He blocked you and tried to delete all of the messages. Too bad for him.
I screenshot everything instantly. People don't realize that.
Leverage maxing.
Yeah.
Tyrant maxing.
I'm tyrant maxing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they're scared. And then once they find out that I do that, they're scared to delete it, even after. Even like months later.
That's what they fucking get. We're gonna expose these fucks, like hella expose these fucks. Like this whole like SDism just has to be fucking exposed. It has to be fucking like shamed.
I love having my receipts too.
Gotta have the fucking receipts, man. Like, and here's the thing, like, you know. But you know, all these guys, they're fucking red pilled. They're fucking red pilled as fuck. Especially Caveman, who thinks imagines to himself that he's doing everyone a favor by having sex with as many women as possible locally, and then claiming he's doing them a favor for breaking them in, as he would claim, or that trying to identify the good ones versus the bad ones.
It's worse. He claims he's doing the other men, his friends, a favor by getting to them first.
That is so disgusting and degenerate.
And he'll say that to them, and they won't even get like offended. They'll be like, "Oh yeah, you're the man."
He's by definition, he's a literal womanizer.
Yeah, and they're a bunch of cucks for
Yeah.
not being like, "What the fuck, dude? Like, that's disgusting." But
Yeah.
the reason they don't do that is because they want to be like him.
Yeah.
So they're willing to tolerate him cucking them with all the women that aren't even going to be theirs.
What was that thing he was doing with them? That he'd do like downtown at the bars? What was that thing called?
Operation Wife.
Operation Wife.
More like Operation Plate.
Operation Plate. Operation Whore. Operation Hoe.
Operation Empty Plate. Because what they'd end up doing is they wouldn't find any women around, and they would start handing out propaganda, like pamphlets and cards, to a bunch of people.
And actually
downtown.
breaking the law downtown in the process.
In the one place in the state of Idaho where that is breaking the law.
Yes. I'm so glad.
I wonder if someone put them up to that, knowing that.
I'm so
and
glad
they're
I did
setting
not
them up for
participate in
failure.
that
I wonder
shit.
if they're too stupid to notice.
Yeah.
I guess they are.
Yeah, exactly. So, you had some points you wanted to make relating to the subconscious developed homosexual behavior.
Yeah, we talked about this last time.
Yeah.
So we defined what marriage was. So
Yes.
we can recap that real quick, and then we'll define what sex is.
Okay,
So
yeah.
do your definition.
So marriage, I have to recap. So the definition of marriage comes from Genesis chapter 2 verse 24, which basically says something like this: a man will leave his mother and father and cleave unto his wife, and the two will become one flesh. That is the biblical definition of marriage, and Jesus backs this up in Matthew chapter 19 and Mark chapter 10. And we'll analyze this a little bit deeper later in the show, but that is actually what the definition of marriage is. But and obviously the culture and society is twisting and being wicked about it and twisting the definition of marriage. But what they are also twisting is the definition of sex.
Which is heterosexual.
Yes.
Penis and vagina only.
Sexual intercourse. Actual.
Everything else is
sexual.
not sex. It's sex
not sex.
adjacent. And what is
Sex
something that's
adjacent.
what
I
is
love
something
that.
that's sex adjacent? A fetish.
A fetish.
So it's all fetish. Yeah. If it's not actually sex, then it's a fetish.
They're on Fet Life for their fetishes.
Yeah. And we were talking too about how the SD men, when they're doing their plate spinning,
Yeah.
they're treating women like gay men, using them just to hook up, because that's what they do. That's why they have the highest body counts. Gay men have like hundreds and hundreds of bodies on average. That's a true stat. And they're trying to emulate that lifestyle, except instead of with a man, it's with a woman. And obviously none of it's reproductive because they're using birth control or condoms or pulling out or whatever. They're trying to avoid the responsibility that comes with sex, which is family creation, by just spinning plates with women as if they're gay men.
Yeah.
Because that's all is about, is sex adjacent enjoyment without anything actually attached to it in terms of responsibility.
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, but at least the gay men, they're not racking up women's body counts. So actually, I prefer them over the red pill plate spinners. Like, you're better off gay than red pill.
Better off gay than red pill.
Because at least you're not poisoning the women.
Yeah, so
you're only poisoning each other, but you're already poisoned anyway, so have at it.
Yeah, one degeneracy leads to another, and one degeneracy is obviously better than other degeneracies, and we'd rather gay men than these fucking Manosphere red pill fucks, basically. As a result, it's just so. It
also means
disgusting.
All gay men are virgins.
Yeah. Oh, the true
doesn't matter what their
incels.
body count is because they're not having actual sex.
They're not. Yeah,
they're just masturbating with each other's bodies. Which is what the SD men are doing with the women, masturbating with their bodies. Same exact lifestyle.
Yeah.
Just as gay. Except worse.
It is worse. It's so gross. It's absolutely gross. Then you said something about like 2D women versus 3D women.
Yeah, you're better off with your anime body pillow too, than racking up women's body counts.
Oh yeah.
You're better off with that as well.
So you were talking about the anime body pillow, 2D women. It ends up being preferable than the actual women that they're spinning plates. You even said something about prostitution is actually better. What was that about?
Yeah. Well, prostitution is illegal in the United States.
Unless you're in Nevada in certain areas.
But not the whole country is not going to converge on Nevada,
Yeah.
There's only so much to go around.
Yeah.
So what they end up doing, because there are no prostitutes, there's a certain segment of men that are going to spin plates no matter what.
Yeah.
And there's a certain segment of women that are going to be prostitutes no matter what. But at least when they're designated prostitutes, they're like kept aside. And the rest of the women remain potential wife material.
Wife material, yeah.
But what happens when you get rid of prostitution is all the men that wanted to spin plates with the prostitutes, now they're doing that with regular women.
Yeah.
And then it spreads like a virus to everyone. And now instead of 5% of women being prostitutes, it's like 95%.
Yeah.
And we can thank
95%, yes.
I guess that's just off the top of my head. I would
we discussed
imagine
this.
that
We
it's
discussed
that high.
the marryable target age group, and it's 7% is the virginity rate. And even then, I saw another statistic recently that was claiming it was actually 5%, and that 7% rate is actually 6 years old, basically, due to Census Bureau statistics. And it's like...
So you're better off being gay than red pill. You're better off hiring a prostitute than red pill, because in both cases, you're not contaminating the rest of the women.
Exactly. And they are contaminating. That's what Caveman is doing. He's contaminating. You know what's also interesting? You have telegony, which most people say is false. It's not false. It's actually very self-evident. I have been a victim of telegony. What telegony means is if a woman has had many men inside of her, and she will take on genetic traits relating to that. This is in Christopher Ryan's work, especially in his book Sex at Dawn, which teaches degeneracy, but still makes some interesting points. But the point is that, because it's a book about polyamory, and polyamory is degenerate. It's so gross. And speaking of which, I actually just found out that someone that we know and respected actually just became a polyamorous. And I found out yesterday. I got to talk to you about that.
Someone that we know here?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
And, oh God, yeah. And this is a gentleman who has gotten in my face many times in the past. He got in my face about my position on women and the red pill, and he was very, very anti-red pill. He's one of the few men in my life who has actually held me accountable for my views, my old views on the red pill, when I used to teach the red pill on the C.S. Joseph YouTube channel. But I was teaching degeneracy. I regret that, by the way, and I've repented of that behavior. I apologize, audience, for those of you who have joined us from that YouTube channel. I am so sorry. Please forgive me, and I'm doing my best to make it right, and that's one of the reasons why we have this show, to help correct the crookedness from that. He was calling me out on the red pill, only for me to recently find out that he's doing this polyamory stuff, and I'm just like, what the fuck? That is a contradiction, technically, by definition. What the hell are you doing? And, he's SD, and I'm just like, dude, no. And I feel so bad. I feel really bad about it, actually. And I'm like, oh my God, now I have to completely rethink my friendship with you. And I'm really dismayed, and I feel bad. And what's interesting is that he was completely right in criticizing me about the red pill, and now he's done this. And I'm like, what in the flying fuck just happened? So I'm shocked.
Well, maybe he threw out the baby with the bathwater when it comes to the red pill, because not all of it is false.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
What, maybe like 40 or 50% of it is
I
worthwhile.
don't think the red pill is false, other than Tomassi's recommendations on what to do once you understand what he claims is red pill
Yeah,
truth.
he diagnoses the problem and then gives you the false solution.
Yeah.
That makes things worse.
Yeah, he does make it worse, and it's a big problem. So it continues to be a problem over and over and over, and it's just like, why are we allowing these people to continue to teach degeneracy at the level that they are? It's a really big problem. And and then you actually were, that segues really well in the next point, which is like you were talking about Rollo making claims about like a third date or something like that. What was that you were talking about?
Oh, I think Tom Leykis started this.
Tom Leykis
But everyone
started this?
just bandwagoned off of that.
Yeah.
Like if a woman by the third date doesn't put out, then like kick her to the curb.
Yeah. I myself actually have taught a worse version of that. On my YouTube channel. Like I actually taught that, a worse version. And I regret that. I regret that. Because I basically made the argument that if a woman that you're dating is, like, for example, a non-virgin, then, like, it's okay to be entitled to, like, sex, like, on the first night. And I really regret teaching that. I abhor myself over that. I really regret it. And I really regret that I have specifically set this audience on the wrong track, especially the men, because I personally have contributed to the wickedness and the degeneracy of this society. And in my opinion, that's what this episode is about. Sure, it's what this podcast is about, but this episode in particular is basically a chronicle of my redemption arc, my repentance arc, in terms of me teaching degeneracy in the past. And I was deceived by these red pill grifters like Tomassi, like we talked about the grifters in the last episode. And if you want to learn more about that, just watch the last episode, guys, because this kind of is part 2 to the last episode a little bit. So, like, go check that out. Like, it's a big thing.
And this ties into another point.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I mentioned it last show, which was don't stick your dick into anything that you're not willing to impregnate.
Yes.
And who's willing to do that by the first, second, or third date?
Yeah.
Like, no one.
No one.
But they're just trying to do their little, like, oh, I just need to get laid, no matter how much damage it causes. Like, how about you grow up and...
Dating doesn't even exist. It doesn't exist. It's a lie. It's a myth. Dating is a myth. Because what dating used to be is that you be betrothed to a woman, which is engaged, and then you're getting to know her, but there is no sex.
Yeah, but how long does
whatsoever.
it take to get to know someone? Like, 3 dates takes what, like a week or 2?
Yeah.
So they think that they know a woman within a week or 2 enough to have sex with her.
I didn't.
I don't think anyone does.
Yeah, no one does. No one
it's
does.
stupid advice to have that rule.
It is really stupid advice.
And totally arbitrary. Like, who came up with 3? Whose idea is that?
I even acted that way in my own life. You
Yeah,
know?
because people, if someone is a degenerate, the last thing they want to do is admit it, especially if you're SD.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah.
So Rollo creating all these degenerates is creating a situation where no one is willing to even acknowledge that it is a degenerate.
Yes.
So they dig their heels in even deeper.
Yes. And you actually touched on a point earlier when we were discussing this of a method that you can actually do to see if you're actually being degenerate, literally. It was like your oxytocin environment. Like, what was that argument they were making?
Yeah, this is kind of like my other point, like don't stick your dick in anything you're not willing to get pregnant. Another part of that is when you have sex, it generates a chemical called oxytocin.
Yes.
It's called the bonding hormone.
The bonding hormone, yes.
And it will change your thinking, it changes your brain. Yeah, so it's called oxytocin, the bonding chemical.
Yes.
And if you ever notice like a guy who's in a relationship that's horrible and he needs to break up with the woman, but somehow they're still having sex, and he's got his friends calling him like, dude, you need to get rid of this girl.
Yeah.
And he's not willing to do it. 9 times out of 10 is probably because he's has too much oxytocin in his brain, influencing his behavior, and he's not thinking clearly. So that's another reason you don't want to just have sex right away, is because what if you start having all these bonding chemicals to the wrong woman? So as a man, you should be thinking about that and not just trying to get laid.
Yes. You know, as Floodspore would say, "Oh, you just got lucky," and I'm like, and it's just that's the Starboy song with The Weeknd or whatever, and it's just like, and Daft Punk, and I'm just like, I'm just trying to get lucky, and I'm like, no, you're degenerate. Stop. Oh God, it's so bad. But yeah,
They're going to be very unlucky when one of their plates gets pregnant and then decides not to abort it.
just like
and
Walter
then their
Weeks
comfy
did.
times are over, and they have to actually somewhat take care of the kid.
Who impregnated a prostitute? Oh God, like.
While he takes pictures with more on the back of somebody else's boat.
Yeah. And, you know, we talked about the great ravaging. We talked about that 2 episodes ago. And what this ends up doing, these Manosphere grifters are actually doing ravagers in training. It's ravagers in training. They're consistently, literally getting men mentally prepared for how they're going to behave and become these raiders. And the great ravaging will happen. And all the women and children will basically be ravaged by these men in a time of war or in a time of societal collapse, which, by the way, we're actually going to be discussing the cause of that directly in this show, in the second half of the show. And it's absolutely terrible. What also gets even worse on it is that you hear about people talk about passport bros. And I am, in general, all for passport bros. But here's the problem. When you have a bunch of ravagers in training, when these SD men are actually engaging in passport bros, as the brother of Floodspore astutely pointed out, he's like, oh, all of these men are basically going in and plundering these other countries and plundering their women because all the women are already plundered over here, and they're plundering those women. Even Tristan Tate admitted to doing that in Thailand with 9 different women, basically.
You know what's funny about that too is these passport bros, they complain that when they go to Eastern Europe, they can't spin plates because the women are too traditional there.
You know what that's funny about that? Clavicular had a very similar, because he was complaining about how the French women would have nothing to do with
Yeah,
it.
I don't think it's because they were traditional. I think it's just because they were disgusted by some uncultured American oaf who comes up to them flexing his status as if it transfers overseas when they don't even know who he is.
He is an oaf. He
even said, like, oh, I need to get more life experience because I have nothing to talk to with these girls. And that's what the French women are looking for. They want, like, James Bond.
Yeah.
Not clavicular. They want a guy who's got class, even though they're a bunch of hoes, too, in Western Europe. It's not like Eastern Europe where there's actual tradition.
Yeah. And
but it's a different reason for the same thing. Like, he wasn't successful there for a totally different reason than why the passport bros are not successful in Eastern Europe.
You know what's also really interesting about that is that, like, have you heard of the rite of the first night? Have you heard of that? Okay, so with the rite of the first night, it's like this supposed ritual where you'd have the local governor or the local magistrate in charge of the village or whatever. He finds out that you're getting married to your virgin bride, and he takes your virgin bride as soon as the ceremony goes, and then he basically rapes her and takes her virginity, essentially. And that's and then gives her back to you, and it's called the rite of the first night.
So kind of like what Caveman's
That is
doing.
That's exactly it. That is exactly what Caveman is doing. That is exactly what these so-called passport bros are doing. That is exactly what Tristan Tate is doing when they go to Thailand, when they go to Asia, when they go to these places, and they're spreading their degeneracy out there and even ruining those cultures. Even though our culture here in Western civilization is just is like even more, it's spent. The virginity rate is 5%. It's spent.
You know what it's like? It's like these guys, like, they live in a pigsty in their own house, and their bathroom's a mess.
Yeah.
So they decide to go to someone else's house to take a piss in their toilet.
Yeah.
Or on the floor. That's
yeah.
basically what they're doing with other people's countries.
Yes, and Tom Leykis is actually where this line of thinking actually came from, because he's like, treat women like toilets. They're just toilets for you to flush your sperm down. Like that, and they're literally actually doing that, not just here, because all the women are already ruined and spent.
That sounds gay.
It is.
That sounds like something you would do if you were gay.
Tom Leykis' legacy for the world is a legacy of degeneracy, and it's a legacy of spinning plates.
Well, his legacy is no kids, and he's a dog mom.
Yes.
And he's like crying alone in his apartment or house or whatever he lives.
He is a dog mom, like actually.
He did a show before he, I think, finally stopped, where he was like talking for an hour about his dog, and he was like getting all emotional about it.
Yeah.
Like one of these dog moms.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised to see him coming by in a stroller with a dog in it. That's the legacy of Tom Leykis. The male dog mom.
Yes.
Kind of like that guy on Twitter. What's his name again? Nuclear Cadillo.
Nuclear Claudillo.
He literally listed the fact that he has a dog as an achievement. He's like, I play the piano, I have a dog, I'm 15% body fat. It's like, okay, none of these things are actually impressive. Like, what have you done that's good?
Yeah.
But he thought like that was like an impressive resume or something.
Yeah, that's his resume apparently.
I guess that's his definition of high value man. At least he has one. Rollo doesn't.
His entitlement to spreading degeneracy in the land and using women and taking advantage of them, like it's so reprehensible, very, very reprehensible. And feminism is a thing. Feminism wouldn't be a thing if these men were not acting this way. Feminism is a direct response. And all women basically acting like whores and playing the harlot and being degenerate is literally a female response to them collectively not feeling safe because of all the SD men acting degenerate like this.
Yeah, and then you get Rollo comes around and acts like the feminism is like the actual start point.
It's
and
not.
that he's reacting to that.
Yeah, it's an effect, not a cause. And I bought into that. I literally bought into that. I got into the red pill because I suspected my wife at the time had sex with another man behind my back. And then she basically, after getting me drunk, as if to like cover it up. At least that's my take on that situation. And that's my opinion on it. And it's like, what the hell? Like,
that's another thing too that SD men do, is they'll do something to mess something up.
Yeah.
And then they'll get a reaction. But they won't even acknowledge that they're the cause of the reaction, and then they'll retaliate against the retaliation, acting like they've been aggrieved.
Yeah.
Floodspore did this with his brother.
Yes.
His brother's like, hey, you owe me money. And then Floodspore is like, hey man, like don't be so mean to me. Or he held $100 of his hostage, thinking that he could spend it better for his brother and save him money.
Yes.
And he's doing that in retaliation because he thinks his brother doesn't know how to manage his own money somehow, even though he's the one that can pay the bills.
Yes.
So then his brother takes the money back, and he's like, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing taking my money? It's like, it's not your money, it's my money. So
yes.
That's what these SD guys do, is they don't understand what actual retaliation is. And they don't understand the actual cause and effect of what is the root of the issue on any given topic. Rollo doesn't understand that.
Yeah.
He thinks that this is the reaction to feminism. Well, no, it's just you doubling down on the same weakness that created feminism.
Yes.
Except trying to leverage it to your advantage in superficial ways.
It's so terrible. It's like extremely terrible. So then, and then that leads to another point you made, something about controlled opposition and subconscious development. What was your take on that?
Gotta jog my memory on that one.
Because you were basically making the argument that these SD men are ultimately controlled opposition and acting as controlled.
Oh yeah, they act as if they're controlled opposition because they are their own worst enemy.
Yeah.
By default. To the point where it's indistinguishable if they're actually controlled opposition or not. They are that weak that their behaviors look to be controlled. They're so weak that if you can't tell the difference, they might as well actually be controlled opposition. If they prioritize their comfy zone over everything else to the point where they're willing to sell everyone downriver then why don't you just kiss the wall in Israel at this point?
Yeah.
Sell out for real if you're going to do
The
that.
Roman wall.
The Roman wall.
The Roman wall.
The third temple, right?
Yeah.
And that it's even worse. Like, at least if you're a controlled opposition, that's kind of like an explanation for the behavior other than just being weak and pathetic. It's almost worse if you're not controlled opposition.
Yeah.
Because what does that say about you?
Yeah.
That you're willing to do all these behaviors and you're not even controlled?
Yeah.
Like, we ran into that with some e-grifters locally here who do politics. And they turn out to be complete frauds, to the point where I still don't know if they're controlled opposition or not, because they behave exactly as if they are.
Yeah. And when they submit to mob mentality, they basically collectively become the Agent Smith of the Matrix, the so-called Matrix. And it's like, really? Because, like, you know, I had tweeted about the Tate brothers being incarcerated recently, but then I started to have the realization after the fact. I'm just like, oh, this is controlled opposition. This is a psyop. The whole thing is a psyop. You can even actually look at the arrest video and you can see that it's AI generated.
Yeah, you can see his foot disappear in the video.
Yeah.
The whole thing looks fake.
It's completely fake. It's completely fake. It's all a big psyop. Don't pay attention to it. Don't pay attention to the Tate brothers being arrested. It's bullshit. And then, like, these sob story tweets that they're putting out there, it's like, wow. So apparently they're entirely compromised. If one person was like, oh, what proof do you have that they're compromised and they're controlled opposition? Well, this whole deep fake psyop that they're doing of them being arrested is complete bullshit. It is absolute bullshit. It's not real.
If the behavior is the same, then it doesn't really matter if they are or aren't controlled. Because kind of like what we're going to talk about in a minute is you judge by the action.
Yes.
First.
Yeah, the action. And so as a result of this, like, the Yuri men end up becoming, like, cornered by these Agent Smiths, this mob mentality, these SD men who feel entitled to be degenerate in this manner and spread this wickedness, that Yuri men end up they're not even able to relate to this subconscious developed shit world at all. So when they're actually trying to participate in Passport Bros, when they arrive, all the women are ruined already, because it's like the great ruining of women. And then that's why feminism is actually spreading to these so-called third world countries rapidly. And it's because of this degenerate form of Passport Bros. And guess what? Women in general, it doesn't matter what cognitive development they are. They can't relate at all. And that is actually the cause of widespread feminism. And it's absolutely disgusting and evil. It is really, really evil. And then that leads even further, because, like, all of a sudden, you know, because Rollo Tomassi in the Manosphere is teaching manipulation, and one of the manipulative tactics that he teaches is this thing called dread game. You have to spin plates because you have to make it look like that you have options so that your woman is always in line. And he's taking advantage of a biological response that women have for polygynous relationships, basically. Because if your wife is acting poorly, you just take on another wife, and then all of a sudden both those women will actually improve each other over time. And then you'll have peace in the home where you did not have peace previously. But he's weaponized it in the form of dread game, which is all about covert manipulation of women. You don't even have to dread game UD women at all. And then he makes claims, and this is what I asked you to remind me about, then he makes claims that women don't give a shit about relationship equity. That's false. UD women care about relationship equity. A relationship investment towards her, a UD woman, psychologically, is going to be grateful for that investment, especially if she started out as a virgin. And then, you know, and if she's got a lot of, if her body count is high as a UD woman, that slowly degrades that over time. But she's more likely to be grateful for a man's investment in her in a relationship anyway.
Here's how you know that's bullshit too. Women crave authenticity from men. And authenticity is another word for fairness.
Yes.
Because if you're being authentic, you're going to call it how it is.
Yeah, call it how it is.
So that is a form of relationship equity,
yes.
fairness,
yes.
that they're wanting from the men. Not a bunch of lies and bullshit and men being harmonious. They want the authentic truth, even if it hurts.
Exactly.
Because then they feel safe, that they're not being lied to.
Exactly.
Which is what Rollo does nothing but promote.
And
lying.
Yes,
nonstop.
he's promoting lying. And then because of this, we have widespread feminism as a result. And then the women, just for the sake of survival, because they're more vulnerable, they have a higher investment in their own personal survival because they are fragile, they're more vulnerable, and they end up going to, being feminists as a result. This is why women's studies exists in university. What ends up happening, because they can't relate to this society anyway, and then they end up monkey branching, which is moving from one man to another, also known as cock hopping. And they hop from one cock to another. In the same way SD men hop from one safety net to another.
So what Rollo's promoting is to fake a version of polygyny superficially, which is dread game.
Correct.
To prevent the woman from being able to monkey branch.
That is correct.
When if he just did what he was supposed to do anyway and been the actual source of stability and safety net for her life,
with actual
then he
commitment that she can trust.
Do all these little tricks to emulate the result when he could just have the result by being the actual man that he's supposed to be, which he's not.
Yes. And it's so gross and it's so reprehensible, and there needs to be more accountability. Like, men are complaining in the red pill manosphere that women are lacking accountability, but there is zero accountability for men and these degenerate behaviors. There is zero accountability, and people wonder why, what is happening to society, and they're consistently complaining about the feminist response when they're the actual ones, due to the lack of male accountability, that has actually created that environment. And then they're blaming the women who have no choice but to be invested in their own personal survival anyway, biologically speaking. And it's terrible.
Yeah, they're blaming the
disgusting.
Symptoms for the infection.
Yeah.
Like, they're blaming the body's immune response to the root issue.
Yes.
And saying that that's the problem.
And
it's like, no, that's actually a defense mechanism.
And you feel bad. You feel very, very bad, for women in general, having to deal with this horrible societal situation. And they can't relate to this SD shit world because fathers continue to fail in being fathers, and mothers continue to fail in being mothers. And so these proper healthy approach to family and sexuality is non-existent. It's especially non-existent in the United States of America entirely, which causes people to even rely on society more and rely on this feminist construct, to rely on gynocentrism. Here's the problem. Rollo needs to understand that he basically helped create or he solidified gynocentrism. He has no concept that he has actually created this, and that all these other red pill grifters are guilty of doing the same thing. This whole, what he would claim is the feminine primary social order. What he claims that is. And
he's the feminine primary social order.
He is. He's become the king of it. He's inherited the ideology because he continues to create that ideology, and he's leading the culture.
Praxeology.
Oh, the praxeology. Well, it's not a praxeology when you're considering the feminine primary social order. It's not a praxeology. He claims it's a praxeology, in terms
he's just
of
trying
like
to
red
butter
pill
himself
truth.
up. It's pathetic.
Yeah, it's so terrible. And he's using that as his excuse to further perpetuate the abuse of women and ultimately children over time. It is reprehensible, and no one is willing to hold him accountable. Like, I don't really know very many of his critics. Maybe we need to have more of his critics on the show. You were even talking about how, like, a lot of feminist women are actually being very supportive of our show.
They don't know how to handle us.
They don't. Yeah, so what's your take on that?
Well, you were talking earlier how on Twitter, like, a woman was liking your posts, and then she started attributing some of the, as you were talking to her, she started attributing some of the red pill behaviors to you.
Yes.
And you were like, no, like, those guys are a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And she was so shocked by that, because you were saying things that might sound red pill. So she's like, oh, this guy's just red pill.
Yeah.
And you're like, no, I'm actually not one of those guys either.
Yes.
And then they don't know how to handle it. They're just like,
They
then
don't
what
know
is
what
this?
to do.
And you linked her to our podcast.
Yeah, I gave her a link, and now she's a member of our audience now. And it's like these people really don't know what to do, because at the same time, it's like all of a sudden, out of nowhere, there's a voice on the internet that is actually holding men accountable for this degenerate behavior. Because again, they are completely blind to the fact that they are actually advocating for and teaching abuse of women. And they wonder why things are as bad as they are. They are the source of the problem. They are the problem. And they're taking that problem to foreign countries and making it worse.
And the men of those countries there should be an anti-passport bro movement.
I agree, 100%. You know what? Actually, there kind of is. The new prime minister of Japan, with her new anti-immigration laws, basically, and some other Asian nations are actually buying into this and trying to get rid of these immigrants, these passport bros, because
Passport
of the
parasites.
spread. The spread of this degeneracy continues to get worse and worse and worse. And I have to hand it to her. I have to hand it to her. Not that I'm really a fan of, a woman being the primary decision maker of a nation, because I'm not. However, you cannot argue with the results on this one, because they are working hard to protect their culture from these fucking degenerate, subconscious developed passport bros that are literally ruining their culture.
You know, the worst
everywhere
one
they go.
is too. His name's Modern Life Dating. He goes by MLD. He's the guy that got liposuction, and he's one of the red pill guys, but he's based out of Japan, and he's teaching how to basically manipulate Japanese women in particular.
He needs to be thrown out. Throw him out. Deport him.
He is one of the worst ones.
Deport
too.
him.
Total grifter, fake. He's not like he's not alpha like he tries to.
Yeah. Deport
You
him.
got liposuction, dude.
Oh God, looks maxing. It's so gross. No. Like, who do you have to be to act like that? No. That just needs to completely and utterly stop. So this leads to, we've identified the problem here. So this leads to the solution, which is men need to be taught in general virgins only. Virgins only. They need to be taught that it's okay to be polygynist if you want to be. Virgins only. That is the actual standard. And then when you actually compare the rate of virginity in these various countries, like the United States, it's 5 to 7%. Japan is 24%. Russia, we're estimating, is around 10%, just as an example. And then but then you have teachings, and this is something that I am very ashamed of. I am very ashamed of in terms of what women have been taught in my online community. And one of the things that they've been taught is something called detachment protocol, where they believe that if they follow a set of instructions, a set of rituals, they can detach from a man who they used to have a sexual relationship with to prepare them for the next sexual relationship, which is, by definition, degenerate. And it is absolutely terrible that I bought into this, that I supported this. The detachment protocol is a complete and utter lie. And back to your argument about oxytocin. Why would the oxytocin argument basically prove that the detachment protocol is a bold-faced lie? You touched on it earlier because you were like, if you're going to stop having sexual intercourse with a woman and you're going to see her for who she really is when the oxytocin is not there,
Yeah.
right? Detachment protocol is basically educating women that hey, but the remains of those oxytocin hits that they had with men before, because when women have sexual relations with a man, she is basically imprinted upon her. He is imprinted on her. It's an imprint.
So the Telegony thing.
Telegony. That's how it happens when they're passing on traits of other men who have been inside of them.
So this happens psychologically as well.
Yes.
In addition to biologically.
Yes.
I see what you mean.
Yes, as a result of the oxytocin.
And telegony, that's basically biology cucking you as a man.
Correct. And that's the thing. That's why the detachment protocol is completely false. It is completely and utterly false. And we're going to be explaining why. So, for example, and this is where it's going to get really, really tough for the audience at this point, because I'm about to drop some really tough truth bombs here. That's going to be extremely difficult for people to accept. Even the disciples, I believe, in the Gospels said to Jesus, "Oh my God, this is a really hard teaching." But it is a hard teaching. And that is that, because in ancient times, they didn't have wedding rings. When was wedding rings?
The 12th century.
The 12th century.
And it was only
what
for
else?
women. And then it didn't become for both men and women until World War II, because the soldiers were wearing wedding bands while they were overseas on the front lines to remind themselves of their women back home.
Yes.
And because they did that, when they got home, they kept doing it, then it caught on with everybody else. And now we have men walking around with wedding rings for the first time ever since the 1940s. Before that, it was women only, and even that only started in the 12th century.
You know what's really interesting about that? Like, my wife, CK, like, she told me, like, you don't have to wear your wedding ring in public. She, like, literally told me that directly. You don't have to wear your wedding ring in public. And I'm like, okay, that's pretty interesting. That's pretty cool. Because oftentimes I feel like my wedding ring is cucking me, in of its own right. Because if you think about it, a wedding ring is actually kind of a symbol of, it's like yet another humiliation ritual. And what it does is it creates a culture of monogamy, or supports a culture of monogamy, and completely shuts down a man's biological and psychological need for polygyny, which is his sexual strategy. And it's like this way that men self-cuck themselves as a result. What's also interesting about wedding rings is it further reinforces the idea that women and children are ultimately property of their husband and their fathers, basically. Because, for example, anti-rape laws have traditionally always been under property destruction laws. Property destruction. To the point where my wife, CK, was like declaring out loud earlier this week to me, why does the hymen exist? Because it's a symbol of property destruction, basically.
Yeah, it's like the security tag when you buy clothes off the rack.
Exactly.
You gotta take it off before you check out.
Exactly, and that's what it ends up doing. So what ends up happening is that these SD men, passport bro degenerates, are basically, they are thieves of relationship equity. We see this all the time in family law. Because, for example, it's like that meme that I posted recently in the Ego Hackers Discord server, where it shows, and I talked about this in the last show, and it's like, a woman is caught, committing adultery, a man is caught committing adultery, and they're all up in arms, they got swords ready, they're going to stone them, that kind of a thing. But in today, the woman gets alimony, she gets child support, and then the stepfather cuck ends up taking your children away and raising your children for you, and he does not really invest in the children, and it absolutely ruins the children. It ruins the woman even further. And it's because these men are actually thieves. So as a result, subconscious developed ism, SDism, is a psychosis that leads to mass cultural sexual sin. And it's a compounding sin. Why does this matter? It matters because when you give consideration to the law of Moses, also known as in the Ten Commandments, which is when you are basically getting in on another man's woman and his children, you are violating the 10th commandment, which is thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's property, and that includes his wife and children. Okay, you're also violating thou shalt not steal. You're also violating thou shalt not commit adultery, because Jesus is very clear that if you marry another man's woman, even if he divorced her, even if he had cause to divorce her, you are committing adultery. Does not matter. You're committing adultery, basically, with the possible caveat being that if he did divorce her without cause, she is allowed to remarry, but that is still debatable, and I don't think so, based on my current understanding of the gospel. And then that gets even further. It goes even further than that, because if your parents taught you to not behave that way as a child, you are dishonoring your mother and father. And I, through my own sexual sin, has dishonored my mother and father repeatedly, and I regret this, and I repent of this behavior. Like, it's absolutely terrible. So this ends up creating an even bigger problem, because we talked about dating earlier in the show, and dating doesn't exist. We talked about this in the last show as well, because dating originally was you're setting up an appointment with a prostitute. That is what actually dating is. Dating is a lie. Dating is a myth that doesn't exist. But what I'm actually going to say now is that boyfriend and girlfriend, that concept is also non-existent. That also is it's degenerate. It doesn't exist. It doesn't even, it's a lie. There is no such thing. You know, they didn't put on the white dress. What was your comment about the white dress?
You were saying that churches are degenerate because they allow women to get remarried that shouldn't.
Yes, absolutely they are.
And they also allow women to wear white dresses.
Yes. When they're not even virgins.
Not even close. Like Bonnie Blue wore a white wedding dress.
Oh God. Yeah, oh God. That is, women should be offended by that. Women should be constantly shitting on her, but they don't, because they're buying into the feminism that they use to protect themselves from these SD male predators.
Well, it's like what you said, I forgot if it was season 4 or season 6, you're talking about the mature feminine.
Yes.
And how it's like a neighborhood.
Yes.
And when one person stops mowing their lawn, the next person next door stops doing it too, and then the whole neighborhood goes to shit. That's how women respond to other women, and they stop holding other women accountable. Because what they start doing is like, oh, well, if this woman's doing it, then I get to do it, because women are all about fairness and relationship equity, kind of like what Rollo says it's not about, because he's wrong.
Yes.
So what they'll end up doing is the whole neighborhood goes to shit because they no longer hold each other accountable. So it's the same thing.
Yeah, it is absolutely terrible. So
So there's no women that are going to get called out for the dress.
Yes.
Until everything gets fixed, because the neighborhood is that far gone.
Yeah, exactly. It is a culture of adultery everywhere. And now people are like, well, how can you make that claim? And I'm like, and let me walk you through it. I can make that claim because the definition of marriage is Genesis 2:24, which Jesus reiterates in Matthew 19 and I believe Mark 10 in the Gospels. And basically that is a man will leave his mother and father and cleave unto his wife, and the two will become one flesh. That is the biblical definition of marriage. So let's break that down into its components. This means a man who either has left his mother and father, he's got his own place or whatever, he's independent, he's doing his own thing, right? Or he has the capability of doing so. That's the first component. The second component also comes from the man, which is commitment. He is committed to the woman and taking actions of commitment. And then the woman is receiving that commitment from him, that indefinite commitment, okay? And then she is reciprocating that with an act of sex and basically sexual exclusivity to him. Think about it this way. In a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship, and they're in a committed sexual relationship, but here's the thing. They don't have an expiration date on their relationship. If they did, then you could argue prostitution, but there is no expiration date.
It's 3 dates.
Yeah. 3 dates.
It's another case of SD people not understanding cause and effect.
Yes. Oh, okay, yeah.
Yet
that's
again,
a good point.
we just talked about that.
This is important because when you're going around ancient times, people aren't wearing rings. So when you look at a woman, if she's out by herself, what is she out there by herself for? If she's with her father, okay, oh yeah, she's not married, you know, if you see her typically with her father or other women, etc. But if you see her with a man, or if you see her with her children, she's married. And everyone in ancient times basically understood that. I go out in public today, there's a verse in the Bible, in the Gospels, that talks about how when you look on another woman who belongs to a man and you lust after her, you are committing adultery with her, basically. And Jesus is making that argument, which means if I'm walking around town and I'm seeing all of these women out there, they're not wearing rings. I have no idea, basically, what their sexual status is because it's so confusing. And then as a result, I'm at risk of lusting after women that belong to other men, which is violating the 10th commandment, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's property or thy neighbor's wife, basically. Because it's all right if you as a man are out in public lusting after women that you see, it's completely fine, provided they don't belong to other men. Because the word in the Koine Greek in that verse is talking about women that actually belong to other men, not women in general, basically. And they're committing adultery in their hearts, basically, intentionally, internally, mentally. It's a mental game, just like covetousness is a mental game for men, according to the Ten Commandments. It's a 10th commandment. It's a sin of intent, not a sin of action, basically. And they try to make this argument that that's not what's happening, but it is what's happening. So when I'm out in public, I'm at risk of committing adultery consistently because I cannot tell what the woman's sexual status actually is. I can't tell if she actually belongs to another man. And it's terrible. And this is societal wide, and it's making the degeneracy even worse. Here's another way of looking at it. We talked about this in the last episode. Men control access to commitment, but women control access to sex, and thus their sexual exclusivity to men. And that is what Genesis 2:24 is actually proving, that, because that was a red pill concept. They basically twisted the meaning of Genesis 2:24, which is the actual biblical definition of marriage. They end up twisting that.
And even if you're not religious or Christian,
Yes.
at least marriage equals pregnancy.
Yes, exactly.
That's like the go-to.
Exactly.
Because nothing else makes sense.
Because if you see a woman with children, you know that she's married.
Right. And before birth control, sex equals pregnancy because there was nothing to prevent it.
Exactly.
So it's basically the same thing. But because society exists and there's all these new things that prevent actual babies from being born, it
Yes.
muddies the water.
Yes.
To the point where no one knows what anything is anymore.
Exactly.
And we can't judge anything by the action because everyone's focused on these ideas that came out of nowhere.
It's
that
confusing.
didn't always exist.
And Satan is
12th
the author
century,
of confusion.
World War II.
Yes.
Everyone thinks men have been wearing wedding rings forever, but it's only a couple decades.
Yes. Here's another argument that they try to make against this, and that is, what is the definition of fornication? And most people assume that fornication is premarital sex. That is not how it works. Fornication is sex without commitment. So rape, when a woman gets raped, for example, guess what? That's non-committal sex on part of the man. When the woman is enticed into having sex, which is the enticement clause according to the Torah, basically, that too is non-committal sex. That too is fornication. Prostitution is fornication because it's a contract, basically. It's fornication. It is extramarital sex. It's not premarital sex, it's extramarital sex. It is sex outside of marriage, sex outside of commitment, according to Genesis 2:24. That is the actual problem. And the ancients, or people before the 12th century, for example, they all understood this. This was normal. This is why the Bible ends up being silent on these topics, because it should already be self-evident and assumed, but it isn't, because it's all twisted now. So that's what fornication actually is. And they are violating those commandments, those at a minimum 3 commandments according to the 10 commandments, and they are basically perpetuating sin, and you're perpetuating sin. Yeah. And we have this culture of degeneracy, this culture of adultery.
And she's cucking the last guy with the equity from the relationship.
Exactly.
But then the last guy is cucking the next guy from the telegony.
Yeah, and it's just constant cuckery.
So the woman's cucking guys on both ends by trying to monkey branch.
Exactly.
Without any reason to.
Exactly. And it's so absolutely terrible. And you know what? Here's what the risk is. Here's what the risk is. There's 3 risks. When God looks at a society that acts this way, what ends up happening? They get smoked, wiped out. Even if they are ignorant of all of this wickedness, even if they're ignorant of it, Sodom and Gomorrah, they no longer exist. Nineveh, gone. Fire in the sky in both cases. Wiped out. What's interesting about Nineveh is that God sent a prophet to Nineveh, gave them a chance to repent. They did, but they didn't teach their children. Their children had their SDism. The city-state of Nineveh ended up becoming degenerate again, even though they repented of their behavior, and they got wiped out anyway. Then there's a warning in Malachi chapter 4, which is like my main life verses, basically, which is, in the last days I'll send my prophet Elijah to you before the great day of the Lord, and he will turn the hearts of fathers to their sons, the hearts of sons to their fathers, or else I will strike the earth with a decree of utter destruction. Striking the earth is important, and cursing the earth. Another translation says, I will strike the earth with a curse of utter destruction. Just like the earth was cursed when Adam allowed himself to get cucked, basically, and then blamed the woman for his SD behavior. essentially, because Eve had sex with her alpha fucks, the serpent, and then she had sex with Adam. At least that's my interpretation of the creation story of what happened in the Garden of Eden, basically. And then women gets 2 curses from God, one for each side of her hypergamy. And then the curse that given to men was the earth was cursed, and then God is going to curse it again. If we do not stop this degeneracy, it is literally going to lead to destruction. And here we are in the United States of America, where the virgin rate is 5 to 7%. What the fuck do you people think is going to happen to the United States of America? Do you think God is going to turn a blind eye to this bullshit? It's not going to happen. We have to repent.
Well, when you deviate from this, what happens to the birth rates? It collapses.
Yes.
And then your society collapses because then you have too many old people, and the young people don't want to work their hands to the bones to pay for 2/3 of the population that's older than them. And then that makes them not want to have kids because they're too busy taking care of old people. And then everything collapses.
Exactly.
So even if you don't believe the Bible, this stuff's coming anyway, whether you believe it or not.
Yes, exactly. It is going to be a sociological, psychological result. It's going to lead to societal collapse, or it's going to lead to war. Either way.
Yeah, because a country that's not as degenerate, maybe they're partially degenerate, but whoever's the least degenerate that has the biggest army is going to take everything.
And the least degenerate means they have the most soldier ants, and they're going to conquer everybody else.
Yeah, it's probably China.
Yeah, or according to Professor Zhang, he maintains it's Russia, actually.
Or both.
Yeah, or both, yes. And I love Professor Zhang. I love his content. It's pretty awesome. But this is actually the cause of what we discussed in 2 episodes ago about the Great Ravaging. This is actually the cause. The Great Ravaging is caused by this. And here's another argument that people make against me from having this perspective. They bring up King David, okay? His son, and his son wanted the throne, basically. It created a Game of Thrones fight, basically, between himself and his son. And he didn't really want to fight and kill his son. His son lost his life in battle anyway. But before that happened, his son took all of David's harem and basically them on top of like the roof of his palace, basically. And when he came back, he didn't know who to. So he took all of his harem, basically, and he's like, okay, you're just going to have to live as widows. I'll take care of you, but I'm not going to, unite myself with you because you all, got by that. Protecting himself from Telegony, for example. Protecting himself from that degeneracy because that Oxytocin, these women are being imprinted. Because let me tell you something about rape that a lot of people just do not understand about it. Because biblically, and this is a lot of people complain about this, about the Bible and the biblical rules surrounding rape, is that if a woman gets raped, basically, she has to marry her rapist. Why is that? You see all the time on Twitter about women who are romanticizing and harmonizing their rapist. All the time. It happens consistently, to the point it's terrifying and disgusting.
There's a stat on that. Let me look it up, but continue.
Oh, yeah. Please look at that stat. But what ends up happening is that when a woman is raped because of just how dominated she was by that man, she's so imprinted so deeply by that man that she will never, ever be able to forget about that man and forget about that
pair
tragedy.
Bonding.
Yeah, and it basically creates forced psychological pair bonding as a result of the trauma that the woman suffers as a result of that heinous act, basically. And it's really, really terrible how this consistently happens all the time. And so they can't help, women cannot biologically help it. They can't, and you look at, and this is where, you get rape fantasies from. This is where you get, it's terrible. It's where you get the romance novels that are actually centered around rape, basically. There was a disgusting one about a woman getting raped by Gollum, essentially. It was so terrible.
Here's the stat.
Okay.
32% of women admit, the ones that are willing to admit it, have rape fantasies. And then there's a wider category that applies to 62% of women, but it goes into varying degrees of the act.
Wow. Yeah.
And that's just the ones that are willing to admit it.
Yeah, just
even for the survey.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's absolutely terrible. You know, and another argument like that they had, like, you know, like, well, what does repentance actually look like when it comes to this sexual sin? What does the repentance actually look like? And it's like, well, here's the thing. We talk about how anti-rape laws fall under property destruction. And basically, you know, women and children are property of the husband and father, basically, of the family. And, you know, if you're stealing the relationship equity and the investment of this man, basically, those people are his treasure. Those people are his property, basically. Store up for yourself, as Jesus would say, store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, basically. He's talking about people. He's not talking about stuff, okay? At least that's my opinion on it.
And even if you're not religious, through telegony, he's become biologically a part of her.
Exactly.
He's imprinted.
He's imprinted
in a way that you can't even argue.
And the rapists have the deepest imprint on that woman, and that's why they end up being encouraged to marry, in my opinion, those men, or maybe even forced to, basically, because of that psychological imprinting. It's such a big problem. That's why they have to be absolutely protected from that.
Have you seen Twilight?
Yes.
You know when Jacob imprints on was it Bella or the daughter?
The daughter.
And it was like right after their wedding too.
Yes.
It's like it just goes to show that whole wedding was just like an abstraction. Even the imprinting is an abstraction too.
Yes.
But I find it kind of interesting how it touched on that subject just in a weird kind of way.
Yeah, it's
what a weird movie, by the way.
It is a very.
I don't know how they got away with him imprinting on a baby
child.
like that. That's disgusting.
I don't know either. It is disgusting, and I just don't. I really.
But a woman wrote those books.
Yeah, Stephanie Meyer.
She must have been part of the 32%.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh God, it's gross. It's really gross. But this other argument that women make is, like, for example, like in King David's case, it's like, oh well, he married Bathsheba. He obviously committed adultery. You know, God let him keep Bathsheba, and but the thing is that, like, well, here's the problem. David murdered her husband, Uriah the Hittite. He's dead. Okay, and that's the thing. From a biblical perspective, the only thing that really can, you know, that is required for a woman to be basically redeemed is actually the death of the man, who was. What we would call the apex of her hypergamy, basically. Mm-hmm. The death of the man. And that was the only, because it was so final, that was the only thing that could potentially allow women to be able to cope with the psychological imprinting of the men that they've had sex with in the past. You see what I'm saying? And so it's like you can't make that argument. So in my opinion, repentance looks like
she's been like genetically microchipped.
Yeah.
And you can only microchip something if it's your property, so it kind of makes sense.
Exactly. And that's, why else does the hymen exist? And that is what is going on, you know, sexually with a sexual sin. And it's like, so basically at that point, like, I'm just like, stop having sex with her and actually, like, get her to the man she actually belongs to. But, you know, she may not make that choice, but that's her choice. Stop. Just stop.
It's not for your own good too, because you're gonna have that oxytocin flood out of your system, and you might be able to think clearly for once in your life. With the right head and not the wrong one.
Exactly. You know, people call it, you know, post nut clarity, but, like, no, it's like stop.
Post nut oxytocin that manipulates their mind and keeps them in stupid situations for way too long.
Exactly, and it just has to stop. You have to repent of this behavior. If the woman does not belong to you, do not have anything to do with her. Just don't.
That makes it easy too. Like, I don't like holding women accountable who aren't my women. The way I see it is, there's a man out there who's not doing it. It's not my job.
And it's usually her father. It's usually her father.
In Fresh and Fit, whatever podcast, these guys are not doing that. They're trying to hold the woman accountable. Oh, you guys are hoes.
Oh, God.
They know that. Of course, everyone knows that. It's obvious. No need to state the obvious.
Yeah.
How about you say to every woman on the panel, all the bimbos you got there with their OnlyFans.
Yeah, exactly.
How about you call each of their fathers on the show, make a show about that?
Exactly.
Maybe we'll do that.
Please. Yeah. We'll
since they won't.
Yeah, since they won't. Yeah, it's so.
Let's blame the actual culprit.
It's so disgusting.
Because we know what the cause and effect is.
Yeah.
Weak father is the cause. The effect is his daughter is a hoe.
Yeah.
So let's go after the cause, not the effect.
Exactly.
How about that, Myron?
So.
And Walter and Rollo and Brian.
But even that is extremely risky, and sometimes you just don't know. And women change their minds way too often that it's really hard to take them at their word. To the point
And
where
they lie to themselves.
They
and they
lie to
actually believe their
themselves.
own lies. And then they tell you that for years until they have like a mental breakdown and the truth comes out.
Yeah, and you cannot take a woman seriously, especially when it comes to her sexual history, especially when women are consistently romanticizing their rapes that they had.
They'll like repress their own memories.
Yes.
I've seen it happen.
Yes.
I've experienced that.
Yeah, I too have experienced that. And it's like, why? So you have to understand, this is why I'm saying the virgins only standard is absolutely critical. But where are the virgins? They're not in the USA. So then you as a man have to participate in passport bros, but you have to be actually respectful and honoring of these other cultures that you're going to when you're participating in passport bros and not spreading degeneracy. And you as a man, here's the thing, gentlemen, like you need to give consideration, actually think about your sexual history.
It doesn't mean monogamous either.
Yeah, it doesn't mean monogamous. No, it does not. It absolutely does not mean that. You need to go figure that the fuck out. Like seriously. Like I'm still trying to figure that out. I'm still trying to figure that out as well. You know, and like now some people make the argument though, well biblically, you know, we're not sure that like, you know, we should stop our marriage, you know, if we are in an adulterous relationship, like what do we do at that point? And like, well, all I can say is repent and figure out what repentance actually is in that situation. I don't know. I don't have the answer to that question. I just don't. So what I've come up with is like, in my opinion, don't have anything to do with, don't increase the sin in your life. Repent of it and be like, okay, stop having sex and maybe act like David and just be like, okay, you're just going to have to live as a widow while you look for a virgin and actually get a virgin bride as you figure that out with that woman. And then, you know, and maybe she'll leave you because all of a sudden you stop having sex with her, you know, because women are, because they control access to sexuality, they're hypersexual in nature far more than men are, basically. And so it ends up becoming like this really serious need for them over time. And then they can't help it. And so they end up probably leaving in that scenario anyway. They are married, and then they break up, and then it just creates this endless swath after swath of sexual. Yes. You know, here's another thing. I wanted to do another statement about porneia, also known as sexual immorality. I actually got into a debate about this with somebody. I actually got in a debate with Grok about it. And Grok is like, oh, well, porneia, you know, it's these things, and it's illicit sexual activity, and it's like not in every case. Because, for example, you have Sophie Rain, who claims to be a virgin, but she is consistently, you know, producing and selling pornography of herself and her body. And porneia, you know, pornography is porn. It's the root word. Okay. Here's the thing, though. She is engaging in porneia while simultaneously, if it is true, that she is actually a virgin. You see, and then porneia, it's a broad term. Jesus says that, hey, you know, a man cannot divorce a woman for any reason except for porneia, and porneia is a very broad term. It's a lot more broad than we actually realize. And because it's a broad term, that basically means men actually have, potentially through porneia, a lot more cause to actually divorce a woman. It's not necessarily just fornication. It's not just necessarily sex outside of marriage or sex without commitment. Because I taught this, and I'm actually very happy I taught this in season 4 content back in the day. If you have sex with a woman, you have to keep her. Basically, I made that argument back in the day. You know, and I have engaged in, because of the red pill corruption and me buying into the Manosphere, I have engaged in adultery, and I regret this. And I recognize my own sin and my own contribution to the degeneracy and even teaching degeneracy in my content, which I am disgusted with myself for. Because do
you know who Rush V is?
Yes, I read his books.
Yeah, he unlisted all of his books and abandoned it. He's like repented of his degeneracy, and now he lives as like a monk in the middle of nowhere somewhere. Yes, it'd be great to have him on the show.
That would be. That would actually be good to have Rush on the show. You know, because like it. I just have so much regret, and you know, as a result of coming to this understanding of Genesis 2:24 and the actual biblical definition of marriage, and then because I have the understanding of porneia a little bit more in terms of how it's a much broader term, because for example, if I divorced a woman without cause and I married another, that would basically mean I'm committing adultery. You see what I'm saying? And then Sophie Rain, you know, she's making pornography of herself and even claiming to be a virgin, but she's still engaging in porneia. It's still sexual immorality, which is what porneia is. It still is.
I love that it's called porneia too. That's
Porneia.
the best part.
Yeah, that's the actual
Very
Greek word.
fitting.
Yes, exactly. You know, and it's just like, well, what the hell? What the hell are you even doing? It's so fucking terrible, dude. Like, and you know, and this episode is like basically marking my redemption arc from being a degenerate. That's why I claim I'm a recovering degenerate, and I am going out of my way to avoid teaching degeneracy, and I'm not going to do it anymore. So I repent of this behavior. I am done. I'm not doing it, and I'm encouraging the audience members to also repent of this as well, because if we don't, guess what? The great ravaging is going to be the cause. The loss of the earth itself is going to be the cause. I guarantee societal collapse, war, it's going to be, if we don't turn around ourselves now, we're completely fucked. And whether or not you believe in the spiritual stuff or not, or the Bible, is irrelevant, as Yuri stated. This is going to be a natural consequence of the degeneracy anyway, of this decaying society.
And biology backs it up, like
Yeah.
telegony. That's not a biblical concept.
No,
I mean, it ties with it,
it does.
but everything goes hand in hand because
It
this
does.
stuff is real, and you can't just stick your head in the sand and
Yeah.
pretend like it's not happening.
Yeah.
Like that boomer at the coffee shop.
Oh, God, yes.
It's like, oh, war's not coming. Well, like I said
In my
that episode,
lifetime.
attach in my lifetime to the end of every boomer statement that they make towards you, because that's all they think about.
That's all they think about.
And it
'Cause it's
still
like,
might happen in his
oh,
lifetime.
I'm having a really good life. It's okay. And I'm like, yes, at my expense, the young person. Thank you very much, sir. It's just like, so anyway, folks, the bottom line is actions is that if the man is independent or capable of being independent from his parents, and he is acting, it doesn't matter if he said, it does not matter what he says to you. It does not matter if he is stating commitment, but if he is acting committed towards you, because it is an action of commitment. It is an action, okay? If he acts committed, you know, like for example, like arranging for both of you to have a home to live together, and he's inviting you to his home, that is a form of commitment, okay? It is commitment. And then you have sex with him, that is basically your version of commitment, because that's what it is. Female commitment basically is reciprocating sexual activity and sexual exclusivity to the man. If it wasn't sexually exclusive, well, guess what? You're an adulteress at that point anyway. There is no such thing as boyfriend, girlfriend. There is no such thing. You know, like there is betrothal, which doesn't have sex in it, and then there is married. There is no boyfriend, girlfriend. There is no dating. It's bullshit. There is no such thing as premarital sex, except for what fornication actually is, okay? Which could be rape or enticement, or prostitution, you know, those kinds of things. This is an extremely hard teaching, but I'm so sorry. Like, it is clear. It's clear from a biblical perspective, and it is clear from a secular perspective. I don't know what else to tell you, people. This is just reality. So I recommend you work on repentance and figuring out what repentance actually means and what it actually looks like, and actually take action on it. Because this is as close to the truth as I can present it to you based on the things. And I am uniquely, vehemently ashamed of myself, especially for what I've taught relating to the red pill and teaching degeneracy and being an example of degeneracy to this audience. Okay, I regret this, and I will never act this way ever again. So thank you all for watching and listening, and I'll see you guys on the next episode.